This is page number 88. So go to page 88 in your binder. You should already be on this page. So we left off here in this section. Just a reminder, when you evaluate algebraic expressions, you want to substitute or replace the variable with the given value, and then evaluate using the order of operations. So just a reminder, we want to substitute, we have to write our formula, and then we have to substitute, and then we evaluate using the order operations. So the first one here, 13 minus m, we write our formula 13 minus m, and then we want to substitute, which means that we're replacing the number 7 for the variable m. So we're going to put 13 minus, instead of m, we're going to put 7, and then we evaluate 13 minus 7 equals 6. So once we replace, it looks like this, and this is just a review. And then the next one, we have 35 plus 2 times m. Whenever a number is right on top of a variable, that operation is multiplication, and we want to substitute. So that means replace the number 7 with the variable m. So instead of writing 35 plus 2 times m, we write 35 plus 2 times 7. And then we evaluate using the order operations. 2 times 4 is 14. And then we bring down everything we didn't use. 13 plus 35 plus 14 is 49. So that's what we should have had here. And then the last one, we write the original formula, 6 times m. We replace m with 7, which is to substitute. So we have 6 times 7. 6 times 7 is 42. So that's what we should have had for that one. And of course, this right here for the substitution. Oops, times 7. All right, so moving on to the more complex problems. We want to complete the table, evaluate the expression. We want to substitute x, 5 in for x, and we want to substitute 8 in for y. So you want to make sure you always start with the formula, which is these expressions here, and then we want to substitute, and then we evaluate using the order operations. So our first expression is 3 times x plus 2 times y. So instead of writing 3 times x plus 2 times y, we write 3 times 5, because we're replacing 5 for x. We're substituting 5 into the expression for x. So we write 3 times 5 plus 2 times y, and we're substituting 8 in for y. So instead of writing y here, we're going to put an 8. And then we evaluate using the order operations. 3 times 5 is 15. You have to multiply first. 2 times 8 is 16. And then once we add, we get 31. So here we need to write our substitution, 3 times 5 plus 2 times 8, and this is where we get our 31. The next one, we have, whenever you have numbers right on top of variables, right on top of variables, and right on top of the numbers, the operation is multiplication. So we want to write 12 times x times y divided by 20. So we're going to substitute 5 in for x and 8 in for y into the expression. So instead of writing 12 times x times y, we write 12 times x is 5, so I'm going to write 12 times 5, times y, which is 8, and then I'm going to divide by 20. And you have to make sure you use your order operations. So I'm going to write 12 times 5 is 60. And then I bring down everything that I didn't use. And then 6 times 8 is 48, and I add the 0, so it's 480. And then I divide by 20. And 480 divided by 20, I can divide the numerator and denominator by 10. 48 divided by 2 is 24. Now you can write it out like this, but you still will get the same answer. So we should have 24 here, and we should have 12 times 5 times 8 divided by 20, and that's what we should have. The next one, 4 times the sum of x and y minus 10. And then we want to substitute, which means to replace our x with our variable, with our number 5, and you replace our variable y with the number 8. So we keep the 4, keep the parentheses, substitute 5 in for x, and we substitute 8 in for y, and then we bring down everything else. So in the order operations, parentheses goes first. So 8 plus 5 is 13. We bring our parentheses down, bring down everything we didn't use. And then we want to evaluate. So we multiply 13 times 4, because that's what's next in the order operation, multiplication. And we end up with 52. So in the order operations, we evaluate using parentheses, then our exponents, and then multiplication and division from left to right, and then addition and subtraction from left to right. So we evaluated our parentheses and we got 13. We don't have any exponents. Now we're on multiplication and division from left to right, which was 4 times 13. And now we're on addition and subtraction from left to right. And then once we subtract 52 minus 10, we end up with 42. So that's what you should have here. 5 plus 8 minus 10. So that is that chart complete. Now let's look at A, B, and C. These ones at the top, that's a little more complex. We have the sum of 6 and y cubed minus 12, comma, being divided by a number x. So the first thing we want to do is, so we write our formula, then we want to substitute. If your test is on the computer, then you always want to write the formula. So we have 2 n for y, put it in parentheses, cube it, subtract 12, and divide it by x, which is 5. So all I'm doing is replacing this variable right here with 5, and I'm replacing this y right here with 2. And then I'm going to evaluate using the order operations. So I have to evaluate everything that's up here first, and then I have to divide it by 5 because all of the numerator is being divided by the denominator. So I'm going to evaluate the top first. So in the order operations, because this is like a bracket, because it's all being divided by 5. So I can't just do parentheses and exponents and then divide. We have to evaluate all of the top and then divide by 5. So I'm going to evaluate the parentheses first because I have to make sure I pay attention to my order operations. Parentheses first, then my exponents, and then multiplication and division from left to right, and then addition and subtraction from left to right. So first I need to evaluate my parentheses. So I need to add 6 plus 2, which is 8. I'm going to keep that in parentheses because that needs to be cubed. And then I'm going to subtract 12 from that. Okay, so I evaluated my parentheses. Now I'm moving on to exponents. This 3 right here is an exponent. So 8 to the third power. 8 to the third power is equivalent to 8 times 8 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64. And then I have to bring down this last 8. And 64 times 8 is actually 512. And then we want to subtract 12 from that and then divide it by 5. So 512 minus 12, remember we have to evaluate everything that's being divided by 5 first. So 512 minus 12 is 500, and then we still need to divide that by 5. 500 divided by 5 is going to be 100. So this is equivalent to 100 once we divide 500 by 5. Remember, every time you bring a number down in the dividend, you have to put a number above it in the quotient. So this is our answer for that. The next one is 3 times x being raised to a power. So we're going to replace x and replace y. We're going to substitute 5 in for x and 2 in for y. So we have 3 times 5 to raise to the second power. So you can write it like this, or you can write it like this. But we have to recognize that only the x is being raised to the second power. So that means only 5 needs to be squared, not 3. So we have to make sure we use our order operations, parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication and division, and then addition and subtraction. Do not multiply 3 times 5. That is completely wrong because we don't have anything to evaluate in this parentheses. And this parentheses means multiplication. So we don't have parentheses here. These parentheses mean multiplication. This is already evaluated, so we can move past that. Now we need to complete exponents. So 2 is an exponent, so 5 to the second power is equivalent to 5 times 5, which is 25. So 5 to the second power, we can rewrite that as 5 times 5, which is 25, and then we need to multiply that by 3. And that's how we end up with 75.